Now, are you looking to buy a house? Or maybe you want to rent, or even perhaps it's land you want to buy. Well, here's some great news for you. Next week, a housing financing conference is going to take place here in Accra. The idea is to help address the challenges that people face when they are hustling to find money to buy property or to sell property. So here's why the organizers are having this event. They've realized that Ghana faces an acute housing problem with a persistent supply deficit. According to the National Housing Policy 2015, a total of 5.7 million units would be needed by 2020 in order to address the deficit and to accommodate new households. To achieve this target and the goals of the housing policy, considerable amounts of investment in the housing sector will be required on a sustained basis over the next several decades. A characteristic feature of housing investment is the large size of it, and of course the long investment horizon, which requires large amounts of long-term finance. So the capital outlay required in home purchases is usually beyond the amount that a typical household can accumulate in savings over a period, when the need to own a home becomes most pressing. So this afternoon, we're going to have Dr. Frank Jimfi-Yeboah. He's a senior lecturer and head of the Department of Land Economy at KNUST, and Frank Opong-Yeboah, who's a mortgage manager at Republic Bank Ghana. And of course, they are the ones behind this upcoming conference. Gentlemen, how nice to meet you both. Thank you for making the time to be with us.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you too.
All right. Now, I am curious about the banking, the housing sector for several reasons. But first, let's talk about the reason why you felt this conference was necessary. What are you hoping to achieve with it?
Okay, so as you read in the script, the home acquisition or buying a house requires a large amounts of money. Yeah. And all over the world, the system is to have a mortgage market that people can borrow from and buy a house instead of spending 10, 15 years trying to build a house. That's inefficient and doesn't help the economy in any way. And so Ghana has suffered this long periods of lack of, that financing mechanism to allow homeowners to buy houses in an affordable way. And so we're organizing this conference, bringing all the stakeholders together, the government, the lenders, development partners, the developers, to try to see how can we change that script or that narrative. How can we develop a system that allows financing to happen in a more sustainable way and a more affordable way. And so it's going to be a discussion and a forum to bring solutions to deal with these problems, for the economy and for the populace.
Wonderful. So who will we be hearing from and who will we be engaging with at this conference?
Okay, so as I said, there are three key partners. We have the government, which is the Ministry of Works and Housing, Ministry of Finance. They are pretty much involved in this. And we have the IFC of the World Bank Group. They are working with the Department of the Land Economy to organize this conference. And then we'll have the developers, we'll have the lenders, we'll have the pension funds, life insurance companies. We have keynote speakers from Washington World Bank, from Denmark, from South Africa, to all come. Let's think through, let's spend 2 days to see this difficult problem we have. How do we solve it, basically? What are the solutions? So, yeah.
Now, Doc, I'm curious, in our housing sector, there appears to be a certain strange, top-heavy way of financing things. So, if you want to rent, a landlord wants 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in advance. If you want to buy, they'll give you a very short time in which you have to pay for the full cost of the house. In other countries, you can get 30 years to pay off your mortgage. But it seems here, everybody wants it loaded up front. You have to pay a massive deposit, in order to get a mortgage, almost half of the value of the house, before they spread the rest of it over a much shorter period of time. What is it that accounts for this desire to grab all the money up front, thereby weeding out majority of people from the market?
Well, it is a lack of proper and sustainable financing package for housing. Okay, so we have, if you look at the statistics that we have in Ghana, we have so many banks, but just about 5 banks that are into mortgage, mortgage services in this country. If you look at it, even the five, a company like Republic Bank and GHA Bank has been in the market for some time now. Only few banks, these other three are just coming to the scene. So we don't have a structured approach, financing options available for people to purchase houses. Look at, if you drive on the street of Accra, look at the number of uncompleted properties that you see. It tells you the amount of capital that is locked up in there. Assuming we have over 100 of that, or 100 of that, and in each of these properties, about 100 million, or let's say 500,000 Ghana cedis are locked up in there, multiplied. Look at the amount of capital locked up in there. But we must have a mortgage system that allow people to access funds at competitive rates, so that even a person who earns 1,500 Ghana cedis will be able to work, retire, and be confident that at the end of his work, he's not going to be renting a property, but he will move into his own property. If he wasn't able to get that over his working life. This is what must happen. And you see, mortgage is the one factor that has the strongest multiplier effect on every economy, in both the micro and macro section. Because if I have a property and I have a peace of mind, productivity from my family will be very high. Organized family will be good. And if I have a property, I build equity in it, I'm able to raise money to do business in future. Look at the value chain of delivering of houses. If a developer develops houses, look at the number of employment it creates. And so the whole economy is a catalyst that must pick up. So if we really want, that's why we involve the government and all the other stakeholders, Ministry of Housing and Finance and all those people. If we really want the economy to develop from the basis, then it means that we have to take housing seriously, and we have to take mortgage business seriously. I admit that the government has started something, which we are all part of it, and we think that during this conference, other ideas from many other countries will be brought forward, and they will be able to share those ideas and implement them in Ghana.
Okay. Now, Doc talks about a need for a structure, a financing structure to be created for the housing sector. But I wonder, I mean, you, I'm sure, have a lot of interaction with customers and vendors, Would this simply not be a function of demand and supply? There is a demand for financing of housing. There's a demand for it. Why is nobody seeing that as a problem and then becoming a disruptor, going in there to supply financing for housing on a longer term basis?
Well, that's a good point you raised, longer term basis. For you to lend long term, you also need long term money. Right? If you have a bank with or short term deposit and you use that money to lend 15, 20, 30 years, you're going to be in trouble. There's a mismatch, right? And so, but the banks don't find it easy getting long-term funds, because all the money we put there is short-term. So that's why we need to create a system that allows them to access long-term funds. I mean, luckily, the pension fund is growing. The private pensions, now about 13 billion cedis in there. Private Senate also has about 9 billion. Life insurance is growing. And so we need to find a way to channel those long-term funds into housing, but in a more safe, because your pension money must be safe too. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. How do we do that and make sure the cost is also low, and then banks can now feel confident to lend long term because they have long term funds.
All right. Now, just this quick one. It's a personal thing I've never understood.
Okay.
And I'm hoping two experts like you can help me get to the bottom of it. So, in this country, the value of property seems to be going up every year. So housing cantonments, probably last year it would have set you back about $700,000, and then this year you go back and they say, oh, it's gone up. It's $720,000. But the dollar is not depreciating. I mean, the value of the dollar is not decreasing. So what is accounting for the increase in the price of a property that has already been built? It's not like they've added new inputs to it, in between last year and this year. Why is the value of property going up in Accra in dollars when the value of the dollar is not moving? What explains it?
Well, there are many factors. Well, we cannot exhaust those factors here. And prominent among them is cost of funds.
Right.
because, for example, you have to borrow. Currently, interest rate ranges above 25%. So if somebody borrowed in CDs to construct a building and that property stays for 1 year and hasn't been sold, what it means is that his cost has gone up by 25%. So if he even slaps that on the price, it means that the price of the property must go up by 25%.
I would understand that happening in cities.
Yeah, but in dollars. In dollars. And the dollar factor also, because most of the items that are used in the buildings are imported. You see, there are, apart from cement and sand, and maybe a little bit of wood, you know, I don't know anything that we have it in large quantity, such that developers are able to rely on, like tiles, like sinks, plumbing, electrical fittings, and all those things, ceilings. Everything is imported, so it makes it difficult. That's why people still have the challenge pricing their properties in CDs, because every time you price this in CDs, it means that when the CD depreciates, you have a challenge importing and a lot more. So there are a number of factors, both supply and the demand side, determining all these factors. We cannot solve all those problems at one sitting, like in this forum. So what we need to do is to fragment it and look at the financial section. What can we do to solve that? When we have finished, then we bring all the others involved. We look at the land issues. How can we resolve that? But so with time, we'll be able to, you know, have an overview, and then would have solved all the problems, and things will fall in line.
Well, I certainly look forward to that day. But in the meantime, we can look forward to the conference. Tell us when it's happening and so forth.
Yeah, it happens on Monday, Monday and Tuesday at Labadi Beach Hotel. It's invitation only. And so, if you have been invited, obviously you don't show up. But it will be, you know, opening ceremony on Monday. We have sessions on the afternoon, sessions on Tuesday, and then we conclude by Tuesday afternoon. It will be on Joy.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. Yeah.